This is not with the good camera, but it's okay. Because what's most important is getting honesty and truth. And I find that using my phone is so much easier and fast. And it's less, it's faster, it's more efficient. So that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna talk about what it means to have a moon placement in Moola. You ready? Okay. So when you think of Mula, you're gonna think of someone like me. And you don't know me. So let me describe. Mula is representative of everything that is foundational. It is symbolic of the roots or a root system or anything that is the beginning of something else. If you think about it visually, it's a place where soil and water and earth meet creation. That's deep. Mula is deep. Mula wants to know why things happen. Mula wants to create things from the ground up. Mula wants to be at the foundation of creation, or in places where things are brought to life or death. Because if you think about where roots are, they're in this space, they can die. So in a sense, Mula could also be the spark of life. I just came up with that now. None of this is definitive. I'm just speaking free thought, because that's how I like to do these videos. In your moon is going to represent the way that you emotionally engage with the world, which we know. It's going to represent how you internalize things, how you experience them, what brings you satisfaction emotionally, what fulfills you emotionally. What fulfills you emotionally? A bundle of roots, okay, as opposed to a sharp knife. Symbolically, very different. So, the manifestation of these characteristics in a personality is going to be reflected in many different ways. And let's get to it. So, I think the best way to talk about it is just to talk about my relationship to it. So things that I find emotional fulfillment from, because moon represents emotions, and you're naturally going to gravitate towards whatever represents that symbol or that myth. That's why the myth was created. So you're going to want to get to the bottom, the root, the beginning of life. You might, in interactions with people, want to know their deepest, darkest secret. You might want to know why something's happening, how it happened, they might naturally want to tell you these things. In relationships, probably because this rules emotion, your partner might see you in that way. They might feel like you're relentless about understanding why something's happening. And just again, emotionally, you're going to feel pulled to things that relate to the beginnings of life or death. You might work in hospice. You might work in critical care. You might work in places where you can experience that beginning of something. That point where you are playing with certain elements, such as, okay, if you're trying to keep someone alive, you have to give them so many fluids, which is water, so much earth, nutrients, to keep them alive, and air, right? So you think about it like that. Maybe paramedics, psychologists, and it doesn't even have to be related just to your profession, but I find that personally, and at least for this placement, definitely for this placement, these people are going to want, because their satisfaction emotionally comes from that place, there's some way that they get that in their life. There's some way. So they might work with plants because they can work in the roots. They might actually dig plants up directly, or have this placement somewhere very strongly in their chart. These people can indirectly take on too much, or not be seen for everything that they are, because there's a lot of depth. There are multiple layers, and if you think about the roots, there are so many systems. They might think in systems or work in systems. Like, I'm just coming up with this on the top of my head. Maybe they work in IT, but they work with systems. Or maybe they do some sort of research, but it's in systems. Or maybe their job is very simple and kind of just a normal job, but they categorize things somehow. Or they're in charge of making sure everything is in bundles. Or like, there's some sort of structure and they hold things together. They're the ones who have the ability to bring things to life, and you might not ever see them. You might not ever see them because they could be hidden. They could be underground. They could just be it's like the silent investor, And when I think about this, there are certain colors and certain emotions that relate to it, which is why I'm filming it with these colors. In this state, in this natural state. Everything here I've thought about. Even though it's not perfect, perfect looking, it still relates to what's going on. You see the multicolors. the multicolors, all of the colors of the spectrum of colors of light. Okay? There's this abstract interest in what is not known, or things that create the known, or the transformation of anything. I would also say electric for some reason. Maybe not as directly as some other placements, but when interacting with these people, they are not going to, they're just gonna be direct. And maybe not in a piercing way, but in an honest way. And they're interested in what's happening really. What's really happening? What's the truth? They might be journalists or writers, but they're not creating stories. They want to know the story. They want to know the root of the story. They want to know how the story was created. How? How is it possible that water and soil create from the seed something that grows? How is that possible? How? How is it possible that we can do this? They're always going to ask. They're going to want to know. They're going to probably make you feel a little bit uncomfortable with how much they can intuit about you that is below the surface level. They could be interested in like those kinds of forms, like magic, psychic stuff, but at the same time, they're grounded, they're in the ground, they're on the earth, they're earth. Because they're dirt, they're soil, they're the foundation of things. So they're the people that keep other people together. And other people might not realize that because they're not seen fully. They might not even know. Their network is not seen. Do you know? Their network is unknown. They may be really private about who they know. Not because they're trying to specifically be private about it, just because that is just, they have a lot of tentacles, you know? They have a broad spread. That's probably not great, but anyways. So if you think about how, it's like they're probably motivated by math, things that make things work, like engineering, a lot of different things. But it's so relevant to internalizing everything. So like just how I'm speaking, it's like I'm really thinking about what I'm thinking about, but it's not linear. It's like there are a lot of different routes. There are a lot of different places. And it's not fully developed. They're not fully developed because they're still roots. And the thing about roots, you don't know if they're dead or alive. They could be in the middle of that, you know? You're going to find these people will, the way that they think is always, they're always analyzing how. Because if they can understand how, then they have the ability to grow. But they might not fully develop into a full-blown tree. But they're still going to grasp little tidbits. They might be those people who like to learn a lot about a lot of little different things, or start learning a lot about a lot of different things, or know how to do a lot of little different things. Or, yeah, probably, like they haven't mastered a lot, because that's not their interest. Their interest is like the foundation. Like, what's the foundation of this knowledge or this content? Or what's the foundation of like our relationship? They're gonna get right to it. They're gonna say, okay, so what's going on here? What do we need to do this? Or I would just say innate questioning of almost anything and everything. Just because it's always coming back to the how. How does this work? How is life brought into the world? How is it destroyed? People talk about it being like, you know, the center of the universe, or like a dark star. It's because no one knows how creation has come to be. So it's deeply philosophical. It's on the point or on the brink of just like uncomfortability, because a lot of times people don't want to see what's real. People want to see the fully grown tree that's blossoming, right? They don't want to see the roots of it. They don't want to dig it up. They don't want to do the work to get to the foundation of something. And it's less about building like above ground. It's less about building like information. It's more about recognizing natural processes and like psychologically integrating that. That's why I talk the way that I do. Why I talk so slow is different, but it's still obviously relative. Things that nourish these people, because you have to consider how the moon nourishes you, because that is emotionally, you know, important. So you're going to benefit from things that are roots, like root vegetables. Very simple, obviously. These people might have a leaning towards being vegetarians just because they're so grounded. Like they want just like what is essential. They're kind of purists in this way. Like I said, they might be gardeners or mathematicians. But it's less about creation or creativity, and it's more about how things grow. So that's why nutrition is really important, and I'm bringing that up because that's what creates life. So these people are very, very picky about how they eat or what they eat, because they're always thinking, how does this affect me? How does this create something that's living? I'm gonna see that. I want to make sure I talk about everything. Because there are so many things that come up. Yeah. Again, you can talk about this in every single way. Because they look for such intense truth, the way that they live is so important. The way that they live is very important. They're gonna overanalyze like all of the things that they own. They're gonna only want to have, in relationship to anything emotional, things that mean a lot to them are probably from their childhood, because that's the root of life. Or maybe they just have a deep they could even just have like a personality that is somehow reflective of like beginnings, or people might just feel like, I know this person. Like, I feel like I know this person, because they reflect that innate nature of life, that pre-adolescence in some way, because it's the beginning of. So although they're deeply intellectual or deeply like curious, it's like that there could be like this childlike curiosity in a way. And because of that, because of this questioning and this curiosity, it's possible that they could be very good like independent owners, or just independent thinkers. Somehow the things, their opinions, or the things that they have to say, or their feelings, the way that the material that they create is very self-aware, and it's deeply integrated with nature. because of that, they might be really good at interacting with people, or they might work like in medicine or just with people, or for the sake of growth, like in research. And I wanted to say pharmacy, because like pharmacy, herbs, that kind of thing. It's the 19th nakshatra. So 9 plus 1 is 10. 1 plus 0, that's 1. So it's like the ending and the beginning. You know? It's like that picture, that little spark right there. When it touches, there's some kind of life that they bring. They could bring people back to life, literally. They could bring people back to life. They bring plants back to life. They bring things back to life. In this intense, curious depth and darkness, somehow it's freeing, or somehow that's why I say psychology, because this is pretty much the perfect placement for someone who wants to be a counselor or a psychologist or a therapist. Because that's their moon, that's how their emotions are. People naturally reflect that on them, and they recognize that they can be comfortable expressing their depth with them. So it's like, even though you might feel really like their presence is kind of heavy, like heavy in a like aware way, like in a mysterious, like what are they thinking? That's could be harsh, or that could be a lot, or because you know the root of things is sometimes not easy, at least psychologically. Sometimes it is. People can just feel like, wow, I don't even have to talk, and I just feel seen. I just feel heard. I just feel like they just bring this grounding that I feel this like safety almost. In my own personal life, this is a big driver in my chart. And you can probably see that in how I talk about it. But I think it's mostly impacted my relationships with people and the way that people speak to me and the types of relationships I have with them. For some reason, like, I can meet someone that is a total stranger and have a conversation with them that's only like 15 minutes, and I already know everything about them, what their insecurities are, what their securities are, like the real crux of the foundation of their life. That's because I'm interested in roots. That's also important, like ancestry, heritage, like family roots. They might even be like foster parents or work in like nonprofits for like adoption, or because they're looking at, they want to help people like understand their roots. They want to help people understand where their life started, like where life begins. So anything else I want to say about this? Definitely, okay. Okay. So think about the fact that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is the father, is the planet of expansion, of spirituality, of knowledge, of everything. That learning, wisdom, okay? So it's like, that's the overtone to how they process information. Is like, what is this going to teach me? Why? How? Back to, it's mostly how. And again, because they've started with this like foundational, like soil-based, root-based place, they have to know how to survive. So they're survivalists. They're intense. They don't like a lot of things. You don't need a lot to grow, depending on what you're growing. But you need a balance of elements, you know? So they probably like to be outside, or in extreme environments, or in extreme like survival situations, or they would be most likely to survive in situations like that because they naturally understand how to create life, how to revive things, how to work with the soil that's around them, how to work, how to grow, how to cultivate whatever it is that's in front of them. And in order to do that, you generally have to struggle or start from some place that's the beginning. You have to start from the beginning. And I'm sure we've all tried to grow things that have died. It's not easy to survive sometimes. But if you give the proper elements to the plant, it will survive. So water, emotions, water and earth for this placement are very important. Water and earth for me. Water rituals, living next to the water. I just said this to someone. I can live next to the water or by woods and plants. But one of those I need. I can't live with a bunch of buildings around me. No. So, or water rituals, like, I'm not going to go there, but earth, grounding, yoga, water, speaking, water, reflection, talking to people about information, reflecting on emotions deeply. They're deeply analytical and emotional, which is rare. Because sometimes people are so analytical and academically inclined, but they can't see other parts. They can't relate to you as a person. These people have that rare gift. So for some reason, this is coming up. They could be like CEOs of big tech companies, or just big companies. I say tech because that's what's big right now. Just big companies. Because they have this unique approach where it's like they might not be the best person at creating the actual whatever it is, but they understand systems. And they understand, if they're taught, because they're so curious, they want to know how things work. So like they're going to naturally, it doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. They just like knowing how things work. Like anything. Mechanics. They're people who figure out, they're going to be the people who try to fix things on their own. They're not going to ask for help. They're not going to ask for help. If these people are struggling, they are not coming to you. That's for sure. Unless you are an integral part of their process of figuring things out. But they're going to try to survive, and they're going to try to survive on their own with what they know around them. And because they're so emotionally awake and inquisitive, that they have to tend to the mind. If they don't tend to the emotional place, or they don't attend to their mind, then the root's going to start to die. So, this is balance of death and birth, death and rebirth, birth and rebirth, transformation, life and death, creation, darkness, philosophy, the uncovering of everything. Okay, that's it.